everyone, good morning. I'm Sudeepthi Dondapati, working as an associate professor from the Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. As we discussed many concepts and ideas pertaining to the English language, and especially for the use of good communication, we dealt with so many topics so far. And today I'm here before you to share my reflections and thoughts, or views, opinions, or strategies, or suggestions about one topic or for one topic. And that topic is one of the integral elements and one of the pivotal kind of like concepts of this English grammar. In English, if we see in grammar, there are several topics and grammatical concepts are so many. But you cannot or I cannot say that this is a very important and essential one. So, like a body has so many organs, and all these organs have different functions. At the same time, eyes have different function, and hands have their own function, and legs or nose has its own function. So, in the same way, I just want to apply this analogy to this grammar also. Likewise, so many others. On the same token, you can understand that they all work together as effective kind of bond and coherence, and which would give a great meaning to the conversation or the concept you have it on your mind, especially for the benefit of the listeners or the speakers of the English language. So as you can see my title, a kind of journey. So what sort of journey it should be? So a journey into adjectives? So you must be wondering what sort of a journey it is. Do you really have this journey into adjectives? So you must be coming up. I mean, so many thoughts have been popped up in your mind already by now, as you have at the moment I displayed my PPT on the screen. Yes, you're right. Generally, we learn them, right? And to another level, if you go, and from the stage of learning to the stage of acquiring, and from there to the stage of using, and ultimately reaching the stage of conveying or communicating. So this is all the target of the speaker. So it will all be a great journey. And perhaps sometimes the journey will be like adventurous, very curious, very challenging journey. And sometimes it can be a joyful journey too. So now, why can't we think about this journey as something very enjoyable and joyful? So I do not want you to think about this learning or think about learning of adjectives as something which is very complicated and something which is very challenging. No way. And some of you must be thinking that, oh, it is very easy and so we can take it just as a grain of salt or a pinch of salt. You'll take with pinch of salt. But I would say that definitely sometimes it is very easy and sometimes it is not very plain. But overall, you will be able to master these adjectives once you understand and perceive the entire knowledge of these adjectives. And then if you start using them in your practice, it will all make a great difference, my dear learners. So not only that, you should understand, you should be able to use the knowledge that you have understood. So what happens in case you don't use the knowledge you acquire? What happens? It's just like you buy some fresh vegetables and which are very fresh and they look very green and they look very attractive and obviously they are very nutritious. And what happens if you pile them up and do not use them or do not eat them? So obviously they get rotten. in the same way, you learn language and you don't use it, and it will be stored, and you want to store again and again, you are exposed to it. And so a best or a good exposure should be followed. So eventually it will lead to the practice. So what you have to do, so after you get exposed to the knowledge that that you have acquired, could be anything, adjectives, or could be whatever learning you have, and then if you do not practice them into in real context, so obviously, like, you don't remember, and you won't be able to relate, and you won't be able to kind of like learn and master the language. So always practice, practice, practice. This is only the thing that is left for all other non-English speakers, as English language, or is this English language is not our mother tongue. It is just the other tongue, and this is the second language, or for perhaps could be for some others it could be a foreign language. So for whatever is the identity, or whatever is the status, or whatever is the preference, or whatever is the significance, you can ultimately how you can master is just with acquiring or understanding or perceiving the knowledge you are you are exposed to, and then to be able to practice them in a real life context, or in your day-to-day situations, or you can use them in an imaginary situation. You can construct an imaginary situation and use them very well, so that you get hands-on experience on that particular topic you want to acquire. With that, I want to move on to another slide or another thought. So with that thought, or with that food for your thought about this learning or acquisition of grammar, specifically adjectives or any other grammatical element, I want to make you understand that this is all a very interesting concept, and definitely learning adjectives will be a joyful journey, because adjectives are very interesting, my dear learners. I do not know how you feel, but I would certainly feel very excited to use adjectives, and I am in love with using these adjectives. So, and whatsoever you bring or you name it, I do like it to use all these adjectives, so that I can make some learners, or my audience, or my target listeners, to understand the quality of something, or the quantity of something, or the nature of something, or about the function, whether it is very effective or it is not very effective. So now, as you can see it on the screen, I'd like to bring an interesting analogy, my dear friends. And you remember, if you can remember, yesterday or in the previous video, we were talking about this analogy. So when I try to make you understand, or when I try to clarify the doubts or the words that are very confusing, that will really mislead you to one meaning instead of another meaning, the actual meaning. So with there we were discussing this analogy and the meaning of analogy and anecdote. So I now want you to recollect, I want you to connect, I want you to relate it to the concept I'm drawing to your attention. There's a family in London. Right. Let me explain you in a very interesting way. There's a family in London, and whose surname is Grammar. So imagine I have a family, and my family surname is Grammar, right? Grammar. There's a couple, and for example, obviously in a family, you find a mother and father, or a couple, husband and wife. So imagine the couples, or the people, fathers or mothers, or this couple name is, what's the name? So the couple's name is Mr. Noun and Mrs. Verb. So father and mother, and father's name is Mr. Noun. Let me give you another name to this mother, that is wife of this husband. That's her name is Mrs. Verb. So Mr. Noun and Mrs. Verb, mother and father. And obviously they have children, and they have 3 children, and these children's names are adverb, pronoun, and adjective. So pronoun is a son and 2 daughters. So 1 son and 2 daughters. So the son's name is pronoun, and the daughters' names are adverb and adjective. So 2 daughters, adverb and adjectives. And now this pronoun, that is the son of this family or in this family, the son has to carry out the work of his father. Obviously, the major responsibilities or the work carried or function or carried or done by the head of the family of that particular house is taken by or held or accompanied by this son, by the son of in this family, that is pronoun. So pronoun helps his father. Whereas what will the daughters do when the son does something? So the daughters do some help. So that help is, it's like, this, the 2 daughters kind of like they also love each other, and especially there is a difference in them. So now this son pronoun always he does this work in his father's absence. So whenever his father is not there, and the son pronoun will do it. And what about the daughters? The 2 daughters love each other. They like each other. Obviously, they are siblings, but there's a difference in them. What's the difference? What's the distinction? Adjective, one of the daughters, adjective, loves her father, Mr. Noun, and brother, that is pronoun, and keeps praising them, adjectives. So adjective always, the daughter adjective always praises her father and her brother, always in appreciation of both of them. So now adverb, another daughter is also there, right? So another daughter loves whom? Like the daughter loves her mother. Her mother. She loves her mother. That is, who is her mother? Mrs. Verb. Father is Mr. Noun and Mrs. Verb is the mother. And so she always helps her mother, whereas this adjective helps her father. So adverb helps her mother verb, and adjective helps her father, Mr. Noun. And now, there are servants in the family too. So who are there? Preposition and conjunction. So preposition and conjunction will help the family, definitely, right? So you understand, there's a family, mother and father. Mother's name is Mrs. Verb, father's name is Mr. Noun. And they have 3 children, that is 1 son and 2 daughters. One son's name is pronoun, and pronoun does the work of his father in his absence, whereas the daughters, adverb and adjective, they both do work, the respective work in her mother's absence, or even if she is there in her presence, they will help. This adverb helps her mother. And now they have servants also, that they are there to help the family, preposition and conjunction. So that's how they function. And now I want you to understand the analogy that I've drawn. Like adverb always helps her mother. That is, verb is the action of something, and this adverb talks about the action of that work. For example, she's walking. So whereas immediately when the verb is at function, and immediately this adverb will talk about, adverb will help the mother. That is like how she is walking. She is walking very smart, or she's walking very fastly, or she's walking very slowly. So she's walking smartly or walking smartly in the sense like, maybe her way of doing or living her life too. So, and literally physically, even if you are talking about walking in her life, it's like she's walking very slowly and she's walking very fastly. So you understand the distinction between them. So this verb is always helped by this adverb. Whereas now let me talk about these adjectives, as we have adjectives as our topic. So now adjectives or an adjective helps her father, that is, talks about noun. So the quality of something. If a flower is a noun, an adjective talks about this noun, a beautiful flower. Right? Beautiful is an adjective. So very beautiful a color. So this adjective is about the quality of something. So very extremely extravagantly done and very smartly done, or it's like very intelligent or intelligent way of doing it. So all these are adjectives. You talk about the nature of this noun. All right? Now, with those thoughts, I want you to understand the coming up slide. It's like, healthy, wealthy, wise. You can see all these things. And these are all the qualities and the nature of work or noun, or could be anything. So when you are talking about the nature, how it is, how effective it is, how beautiful it is, how bad it is, how worse it is. So when you are talking about the quality of something, definitely you are talking about, or you're using adjectives. Now, let me give you the definition of it. So I now get convinced that you might have understood the definition or the meaning of these adjectives. So do not get confused, and this will be a very joyous journey in case you are able to understand them. Now, adjective is a word that defines, qualifies, or modifies. So many functions, but very similar the meaning of a noun. Or more rarely of a pronoun. So not much about pronoun, that is his brother, but it is all to do with the noun. It expresses a quality, that is what I've been telling you. It expresses the quality of something you are interested in. So it expresses a quality or attribute. Attribute could be a characteristic or a trait of anything, or the nature of the concept you are talking. So quality or attribute or nature of anything. Next, of the word it qualifies. So basically this is a division. There are two main categories. After you understand the meaning of it, there are two main categories. So what are they? They are determining adjectives and descriptive adjectives. So determining adjectives and descriptive adjectives. So what are these determining and descriptive adjectives? So they determine, so some qualities or quantity or any measurement, or it could be anything at the same time, which can be either qualifying and classifying. So they determine, right? So when they determine whether it is true or not, or whether it is this much or not in terms of measurement, the kind of the way it determines, they are, which can be obviously called as qualifying. It will qualify that the particular noun or whatever you're talking. And then descriptive, like they describe. When they describe, obviously they will be considered as descriptive adjectives. So they can be either classifying or qualifying adjectives. Now, let me talk about this determining adjective. When I say it is determining, they are also called limiting adjectives. So limiting adjectives are very limited in nature. So they are generally classed in the family. That is, like, for example, these are determining adjectives. It's like, they are possessive adjectives, numerals, quantifiers, especially these determining Adjectives will determine the quantity of something or the possession of something, or could be related to numerals, could be related to quantifiers, could be related to possessive adjectives, could be demonstrative adjectives or interrogative adjectives. Right. Now, they are notably possessive adjectives such as my, their. So, possessions related, very possessive, right? My book, their pen, or it is her notebook. So, kind of like a possession. So, possessive related adjectives are nothing but determining adjectives. And when you come to numerals and quantifiers, and they will quantify one pen, two books, three, four, many, very less. So, these are all quantifying adjectives. And demonstrative adjectives, such as they demonstrate, they represent this is the book, or this is the topic I am giving, or that is the lecture I'm trying to give. So these are demonstrative adjectives. And not only demonstrative adjectives, but also there are interrogative adjectives. So they demonstrate adjectives, whereas interrogative adjectives, they like which, when, where, interrogation, how they do, why, when, okay, how, all this. These are interrogative. So now we looked at several categories: determining and descriptive. So under determine or determinative, let me take you through this, right? So these determiners, okay, determining these adjective, some quality, okay. So these are nothing but possessive adjectives. So what are these determining adjectives or determiners? Say they determine or they state something like quality or quantity. So they determine something in terms of numerals, in terms of products, in terms of quantity, in terms of like whether they are demonstrative or interrogative adjectives. So descriptive adjectives. Now what are they? These descriptive adjectives are qualifying or qualificative or qualifying adjectives. So they qualify. So these determinants are to do with numerals or quantifiers, demonstrative, interrogators. Whereas descriptive are qualifying. Okay, there are two categories of descriptive adjectives. One is qualifying adjective, right? So qualificative. These are nothing is like they qualify whether it is big or small, nice or not, complicated. Okay, so which express the passing or perceived qualities of a noun, right? So whether they're big or bad, big or small, whether more or less, so very beautiful or not. So they describe, all right? They are descriptive adjectives. So that category will come under qualifying. So they qualify something nature in terms of what? Big or bad, big or small, nice or not. So all these they qualify. So whether they say either it is okay or not. And the another category we have it is classifying. Classifying in the sense depending upon different categories. So you don't have to worry about it. So what are these classifying adjectives? They are like married, alright, married or unmarried. So under married category, so how do you use? What are some adjectives you can use, right? And another category is like second, hydraulic, related to water, unique, dead, right? Which express permanent qualities or absolutes. They are permanent. They're absolutes. So the sun revolves like that, or the sun is sun shines brightly. So the quality is permanent, right? You don't say. Let me take you through some more qualifying adjectives. Like they are qualifying adjectives can be graded, my dear learners. So how can they be? In terms of their degree, right? So in terms of their intensity also, like quite, enough, very, right? So all these can be qualifying adjectives, and they can be further used as comparatives or superlatives. Qualifying adjectives are nothing but they qualify something like in terms of size or function or anything. So very, very much, right? Quiet, enough, qualifying. All these will qualify them. So you can either keep it as comparative or superlative. Comparative, or you can use it as like big, bigger, biggest. Okay, small, smaller, smallest. You can use them as superlatives and comparisons. Now, let me tell you some more information about classifying. We saw now qualifying adjectives. Now we will understand classifying. So, under they cannot be graded, whereas qualifying adjectives can be graded, whereas classifying adjectives cannot be generally graded. Why? Because the person is either married or not. See, you cannot say like she's after once she is married, she was getting married or she will be getting married. Okay, or you cannot say like she's very much married or she was not much married. No, grammatically it is wrong. Or you don't say when a person dies, like you cannot say he is more dead or less dead. No, once dead is dead, once married is married. So that is why they classify, and these are permanent, these are static, and these are not dynamic. Whereas these qualifying adjectives are dynamic, they can change or they are temporal. Right. Adjectives can be used as qualifying adjectives, right? And they depending upon the context. Now, take the example of the adjective old, right? So you take this adjective and you can use in different contexts depending upon the context. See, my car is very old. Old. So here you're talking about qualifying something, qualifying with a noun. So you are talking about whether it is old or a new one. So you qualify. And whereas car is, it is noun now in the sentence. So if the car is noun, we are qualifying this noun, whether saying it is old or new or a fresh or something very good. So you qualify this noun, whether it is how it is. So it's like that is why. So and also see another sentence like he's old. My car is very old and he is old. Here you're not talking about the qualifying or you're not qualifying the noun. But here you are saying you are qualifying whether like you're relating it to a pronoun. So any pronoun here, he is old. You're talking about this pronoun saying that he is old. So he is a pronoun. Right? Old. You're talking whether he's an old person or a young person. Right? In another context, you can classify. The old computer was much quieter than the new model. It was much quieter, better than the new model. So old computer, you can classify them in categories, whether it is old or new. Here, it is not permanent and static. That is why you can classify them. Right. In the first two examples, old is a perceived quality. Perceived, where you can perceive whether you can see and understand whether it is old or not. You can see and understand. So therefore, that is gradable. It's very old or it's a new one. It's not very old. So you can grade them. Whereas the third one, old computer, has an absolute value. Like for example, whether it is former, that old computer, former or previous one. So you cannot keep either, you cannot keep it under like this changing quality or dynamic quality. Now, use of adjectives. So when you use adjectives, you can understand whether they are attributive or predicative. Attributive are used in too many ways. So they can be attributive or predicative. So whether they attribute or they talk about the verb. So let me take you through this attributive adjectives. They stand next to a noun, right? In a noun phrase. They come before the noun. Example, attributive adjectives. They talk about the characteristics of this noun. See, the big metal box. You are talking about this box, right? Noun, and you are talking about how it is. It's very big. It is metallic. So, these attribute the nature of this noun, nature of the noun. My dear old grandfather, like old nature attribute, a very modern plastic dish. right? An easily recognizable face, easily recognizable face. A pink and green dress, the color of this dress. And a not too infrequent event, a not too infrequent event. So you're talking about the nature of something. Next, another category we saw. One is attributive and another is predicative. We saw attributive and now we will see predicative. These are used as complement of the verb, right? Complement, like get, become, grow, like object of the verb or anything. For example, see, the result was magnificent. The mother is beautiful. The weather is getting colder. Alright, I grew fonder of London after living there for a month. These are used as complement of the verb to be similar. Like they go, they change. Okay, my mother is beautiful. Attributive and predicative. They're talking about the action, how she is. We are talking about the result, how it is. We are talking about the mother, she's beautiful. We are talking about the weather, she's getting colder. Right? We are talking about how great I grew fonder of London after living there for a month. Next, we'll see another category. Adjectives in the plural. Adjectives, how you can use adjectives in the plural sense. We talk about the poor, right? We talk about the poor, the living, or the wounded. We talk about the poor, the living, or the wounded. So we cannot say, so how you use poor, right? About is an adjective, right? And wounded. And you cannot say, you cannot use these adjectives, wounded, right? Poor, living in plural sense. Like, you cannot say the poors or the livings or the woundeds. Just say wounded dog, wounded person, the poor. So it represents all, right? On the other hand, with colors, especially when we are referring to teams, adjectives as nouns do take plural sense, whereas colors. So what you have to understand is some adjectives cannot be used in a plural sense, and some more adjectives can be used in a it's like in a plural sense. Like the final is between the reds and the blues. The final is between the reds and the blues. So when you're referring to colors and as an identity, you can use in a plural context. Next, formation of adjectives. So how you really form them. If you have to learn them, you have to form them. So many adjectives are like lexical words. So they belong to different parts of speech and they're generally words, vocabulary in their own right. They exist independently of any other word or are the root words of a family. Either they exist independently on their own or they are root words. For example, good, bad. So you cannot say bad, okay, badding or baddest, right? Worst you say. So some are lexical words, they exist. You don't say gooding or goodest. You say good, better, best. But in comparison, superlative. But they exist. They're independent. They don't take any another help. But see the other categories, they are inflected forms and they are root words formed from root words like charming, charm. And you can use this suffix ing and make it as a charming personality, or you can say I am fond of that and sweetness, my fondness leads to something else. So you can use these suffixes and these are interdependent. So the adjective charm or the adjectives charm and fondness, charming are formed only from these inflections and rooted words. Whereas good, bad are self-independent and self-dependent and they don't need any help. See, the other adjectives can be formed from nouns. For example, beautiful. See, right, like again, from beauty. How are they formed? They are formed from like beauty, motion, motionless. So all these suffixes, words, framed words or root words are all interdependent or dependent words. Right? Some more like root words or suffixes or inflected words or inflections form words that are formed from these inflections. They are nothing but unthinkable, able, okay, doable, mendable, possible, plausible with either able, 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 or ible. So with these two inflected forms, these several words are formed, like care, less, fruit, less, home, less, motion, less, with. So with the less suffixes, these words are formed. Beautiful, hopeful, wonderful, awful, blissful. So all this. Fog, storm, skin, blood. See, all these are formed with Y inflections. Smallish, greenish, darkish with ISH. Right. Some more words like distinguish, bird, contented, square for inflected with ed, and some more inflected forms with like ing, challenging, alarming, amazing, exciting. Right, now let me talk about the comparisons, how you can use adjectives in a comparative sense or in context. Many qualifying adjectives can be used as either comparative or superlatives, right? So usually you take more and most. In comparison, you take more, and in superlative sense, you take most, right? So you can say good, better. There are some common adjectives with irregular forms. They use, so don't say good, gooder, goodest. Generally say good, better, best, bad, worst, worst. There are exceptions, some comparative, irregular adjectives, but not all. See here, careful. You can use it in comparison sense. More careful, most careful. Difficult, most difficult, more difficult in comparison. Or in superlative way, you can say most difficult. Certain, more certain, most certain. Hard, hard, hardest. Black, blacker, blackest. Old, older, oldest. See, all these are several examples. Warm, warmer, hard, harder, big, bigger, quiet, quieter, clever, cleverer. These are formed. So words that end in R and S. Pretty, prettier, prettiest. Heavy, heavier, heaviest. Adjectives ending in Y have inflected forms. Right? Adjectives modified by verbs, adverbs. Adjectives modified by adverbs, like I'm quite. So some adjectives are modified by adverbs also. So they are like I'm quite certain. Certainty is an adjective, and you are using an adverb so that they will talk about the point or something. I'm quite certain. I'm very much, very good, very much certain that I left my hat in a car. This is a rather good film. So you can say this is a good film, but you add an adverb to intensify something. A rather good film. This is rather a good film. It's very clear that you have read the book already. This is a highly complicated situation. But how you're talking about the quality of something. So highly complicated. You can say it's clear that you have read the book, but it's very clear. You're intensifying your emotion there. This situation is highly complicated, right? Highly, how it is? It is highly complicated. Okay, that was a clear, informally you say, okay, that was a clear enough reply. Enough reply can be done, but then like clear, you're using all these adverbs. Wide enough, is the door wide enough? That was much better than last time. It's rather better than I expected. They are a newly married couple. They are not just married couple, but they are newly married couple. He made a carefully worded statement. Carefully. So how did he word it? Carefully. Right. So these are some exercises, right? You can, so before I want to once again kind of like wind up this topic before I close this presentation, thinking that what all we have learned. We've learned adjectives such as like how they are categorized under different categories. Like you saw that they have qualities like attributes. These generally they talk about the nature of something, and then we saw they are classified under several categories: determining adjectives or limiting adjectives. Both are same, and right under determining adjectives, possessive adjectives, demonstrative adjectives. We also saw about we also saw this interrogative adjectives. There are two categories of descriptive adjectives, like qualifying and qualificative. Like they said, big, very nice, complicated, right? Under different categories. And then you have classifying adjectives. Like these are can be categorized under different categories, like whether it is a married category or second or related to water or related to dead or whatever. So you cannot do that. Also, you can qualify adjectives in terms of their measurement, or in terms of their intensity, in terms of their quantity, or in terms of their like measurement, like very quiet enough, right? Whereas classifying, you don't grade them. Okay, sometimes, like for example, you don't say very much, very dead, or more dead. And we talked about how adjectives can be used in different senses. My car is very old, so he's very old. You're talking about it, the nature of something. And also you talked about this perceived equality, right? Absolute equality. And only the third sentence is not about the perception. It is to do with classification. Whether it can be categorized in the previous, like whether it is former, old one, or it is previous one. Right? We talked about adjectives as attributive or predicative. So these adjectives, we saw that attributive and predicative. Attributives, like their quality of something, the nature of something, like the big metal box. You are not simply saying metal box, a metal box, but you're saying the big metal box. So you are not only saying old grandfather, you're saying he's very my dear loving grandfather. A very modern plastic dish. You don't have to say all, not a compulsion, but if you want to say about the nature of particular point that you want to say, you can use these adjectives. Whereas predicative, they talk about the now, like how it is. My mother is, how is she beautiful? Whether the weather is getting colder. So this predicative you are used as complement generally as the object, okay, object of the verb. Whereas we saw how adjectives can be used in the plural sense, like only colors. Like for example, you can name any parties. You can say the roses or the jasmines. Like you name some parties, and you can say then the reds or the roses. Whereas here you can see the poors when you are referring to the poor people. The poors you cannot say. Have to be mindful of that. And then how we saw to that how adjectives are formed. Adjectives are formed in terms of like good, bad. They are formed from through in different several ways. They are like they are kind of inflected forms are used, and sometimes they are dependent, right? And so there are some independent words like good, bad, worse. These are independent. They self-exist. They don't depend. And we saw several suffixes. And we also saw how words can be used in a comparative sense. Like you can use more in superlative most, you can say, right? And when you're comparing, the last word ends okay, and the last word in superlative est. More careful, more. These are some examples. Difficult, most difficult, certain, most certain. All these things. Black, blackest, oldest, big, bigger, biggest. See, all these are adjectives are formed from these inflections. Pretty, prettier, heavy, heavier, all these things. Adjectives formed by adverbs. So, are there also adjectives formed by adverbs? Yes, there are. It's like you can say, I'm quite. So, adverb, you add more about the quality of adjective. Quite certain. This is a rather good firm. It's very clear that you have read the book. It is a highly complicated. These are all adjectives modified. So, some more examples for you there. A newly married. So you are adding to the quality of something. How are they? They are newly married. He made a carefully worded statement, right? That was much better. Everything. All these are some. And now let me take you through some more examples. Like you should be very careful. Snowboarding is a dash hobby. a dash hobby. So you have to choose the appropriate adjective. So you have to see which is more suitable. So you should be very careful. So caution. So it must be something dangerous. So bore, it is nothing to do with interest. It is nothing to do with hatred or nice or wrong, but it is to do with the danger, right? That's why the answer could be, you should be very careful. Snowboarding is a dangerous. So danger, a warning. He gave her a beautiful dash ring. The ring is made of gold. Golden ring or gold ring, you can say anyway. Beautiful golden ring or beautiful gold ring. So most suitable is beautiful gold ring. She is dash than Caroline. Shorter. So here you see the comparison, right? We saw to that in comparison we use er and es, or s. So in comparison you say she's shorter than Caroline or she's shortest. So the right answer is it's like shorter. Next, I think she's the most beautiful girl. Why? In superlatives generally you take the ultimate. You think that's the ultimate. Like among many, you whenever you say one and only one person, she's the most smartest girl. Okay, who does work. So when you are saying that she's only one person, then you can use superlative, and superlative takes the definite article the. I think she is the most beautiful, and you're not comparing here. Comparison takes place between two parties, but here you are taking overall among all. I think that BMW is a good car, but my brother thinks that Audi is better. You're comparing here again. They have bought a table. So what kind of new brown round wooden, or round new brown wooden, or new round brown wooden, or new wooden brown wooden? So always you have to talk about this quality, whether it is new or old, new, round, the quality, shape of something, and the color of something, and the object. New, round, brown wooden table. Mary speaks German. Fluently German or fluent German or fluenty German. So she speaks fluent. So she's speaking fluently, you can say. But here the answer, Mary speaks fluent German. If you want to use fluently, then you have to use in there. We all think his behavior, sometimes adjectives will give rise to this opposites also, antinormal or abnormal or abnormal. We all think his behavior is abnormal, right? So with these thoughts, I want to close my presentation with all these suggestions and some views on this particular topic. So I want you to make a joyful journey into these adjectives. So I wish you all the best. Hope you enjoy this flavor or enjoy the presentation, and would definitely benefit from this video and will be able to use it in your future sentence construction or in any language context you use. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.